Welcome back to Stoic Capsule. Today, we're diving into something that might just change the way you see power forever. Have you ever noticed how, in every room, there's always one person who seems to hold the real control? And strangely, it's rarely the one talking the loudest or throwing their weight around. More often, it's the quiet figure, calm, composed, saying almost nothing, yet somehow everyone else unconsciously follows their lead. Power doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it arrives silently, observes patiently, and before you even realize it's there, it has already won. In a world addicted to constant chatter and endless drama, true dominance belongs to those who have mastered the art of silence, timing, and psychological distance. The greatest strategist doesn't need to fight. He doesn't waste his energy proving himself. Instead, he allows others to reveal their weaknesses while he remains unshaken. This isn't about manipulation, it's about self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and the ability to outsmart anyone without a single clash. Real dominance begins with control over yourself and over your own mind. In this video, you're going to discover 7 unbreakable rules for total dominance, ancient Stoic wisdom, transformed into psychological weapons you can use in modern life. Let's begin. Think about this. Why does the calmest person in the room almost always end up holding the most control? Because when chaos breaks out, when emotions explode, the person who stays centered becomes the anchor everyone else gravitates toward, not because they're feared, but because they're respected, even admired. Calmness is not weakness, it's authority in disguise. It's your nervous system under command, your emotions aligned with reason. Most people lose before the game even starts. Why? Because they can't stop reacting. They enter conversations tense, defensive, already on edge. One offensive remark, and they explode. One passive-aggressive comment, and they snap back instantly. In that moment, they've already lost control. They're not leading the interaction, they're being led by it. This is exactly what Epictetus warned us about. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. If someone can press a button and instantly make you angry, you're not in control, you're programmable. And those who want to dominate you, they're testing for those buttons. They're watching how quickly you defend yourself, how easily you get offended, how your face changes when they touch on your insecurities. Each visible reaction gives away part of your strategy until you're playing with your hand wide open. But here's the truth. Calmness is not natural, it's trained. It's forged through discipline, practice, and mental rehearsal. You don't magically stay calm when your ego is attacked. You prepare for it. You practice detachment. You control your breathing. You visualize the storm before it arrives and decide in advance who you will be when it comes. Calmness sharpens your vision, keeps you alert, and gives you time to see what others miss in their emotional chaos. And make no mistake, calmness is not passive. It's strategic. Some people will misjudge you, thinking silence means weakness, or that patience means you don't know how to fight back. Let them think that. Their assumptions become your camouflage, because in reality, stillness is pressure. Silence is power, and in the right hands, both become weapons. And this is where restraint comes in. True restraint The kind that's unshakable, can feel terrifying to the insecure. Why? Because when you remain calm, they can't read you. They don't know what you're thinking. They have no idea how much you've already noticed, how much you already know. And people, more than anything else, fear what they cannot predict or understand. That unreadability, that mystery, is exactly where your advantage begins. Whether it's in negotiations, relationships, or moments of conflict, think of it like this. The one who has control over their tone, their timing, and even the tension in their silence, ultimately controls the entire game. Let's take a real-world example, the classic boardroom breakdown. Picture this: two executives, both pitching a high-stakes partnership. One of them bursts in with energy, loud, animated, cracking jokes, overselling every detail, piling on pressure. With every word, the other, still, watching, occasionally asking a precise question, nothing more. Fast forward 10 minutes. The loud one starts to unravel. He's rambling now, repeating himself, throwing out more enthusiasm than substance. And then, the calm one makes his move. He leans forward just once and delivers a single cutting line. You've given me a lot of enthusiasm, but very little data. Boom. Silence fills the room. The game is over. That's calm power. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It waits. And then it strikes with surgical precision. So how did you build this kind of presence? You need rituals, daily practices that forge your inner fortress of calm. The Stoics lived by these. And you can too. Start here. 1. Morning silence. For the first 30 minutes after you wake up, don't touch your phone. Don't scroll. Don't consume. Sit with your mind. Let it settle. Learn to listen before you react. 2. The pause rule. Whenever someone says something that triggers you, don't bite back instantly. Pause. Count 3 seconds before replying, or choose not to reply at all. That space is power. 3. Reflective. Journaling. Every night, ask yourself, when today did I lose my calm? What triggered me? Write it down. Name it. By naming it, you strip it of power. 4. Cold exposure. Yes, cold showers or ice baths. Not for social media, but for training your nervous system. When you can stay calm in cold shock, you're teaching your body how to remain steady under pressure. 5. Controlled breathing. Practice box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold again for 4. This resets your system in the middle of stress, and with enough repetition, it becomes second nature. Because here's the truth. When you stay calm, you don't just dodge emotional traps, you set the tempo of every interaction. While others waste energy trying to dominate through noise, you dominate through presence. You don't need to raise your voice when your aura already commands the room. Calmness is rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. So train yourself to be the still eye of the storm. Let the chaos spin and whirl around you, but never let it enter you. Because the man who stays calm doesn't just survive the battle, he owns the battlefield. And if you truly want to outsmart someone, you don't rush to fight them. You observe them. You let them speak first. You let them reveal their mindset, their fears, and their insecurities while you remain unreadable. Because in any game, whether it's business, power, love, or influence, the one who speaks first usually reveals their hand. This is the ancient art of strategic listening. The Stoics knew this long before psychology gave it a name. As the saying goes, it is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. But here's the secret: it's not just about not speaking. It's about listening with intention. Listening not to reply, but to extract. Because when someone talks, they reveal far more than they realize. They show you what matters most to them, what they're afraid you'll discover, and what they hope you'll overlook. And here's the beauty: most people can't help themselves. They leak clues constantly in their tone, their rhythm, even the words they choose. And when you remain calm, centered, and unreactive, you catch it all. The less you speak, the more you learn. While others are busy filling the silence, you quietly gather intelligence. They reveal their strategies, their motives, their weaknesses while you remain unreadable. That's psychological warfare disguised as humility. Why fight for information when insecurity is so eager to give it away? Here's the paradox. People have a deep desire to impress those they perceive as above them. So, when you carry yourself with quiet confidence, not arrogance, not noise, but true inner power, people will instinctively try to prove themselves to you. They'll overshare, overcompensate, and overexplain their motives, their plans, and even their insecurities. And the best part, they won't even realize they're doing it. You're not interrogating them. You're not forcing them to talk. You're simply letting silence do the heavy lifting. Insecure people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, but those words inevitably betray them. Think of the real-world example, the subtle trap. Imagine sitting across the table in a negotiation. Instead of rushing in with your offer, you simply say, "Tell me what you're looking for." Then you wait. You listen. What happens next? They begin to talk, probably too much. They try to sound confident, but in the process, they reveal what actually matters to them. They show you their real priorities. They expose what concessions they're most afraid of. Sometimes, they'll even mention the kind of deal they don't want, which ironically gives you your target. And now you know the terrain, while they know almost nothing about you. That's not luck, that's leverage. And leverage always favors the patient. Here's another principle. Use questions as soft weapons. A well-placed question can be far more dangerous than a sharp accusation. Why? Because questions don't trigger defenses, they invite exposure. Try these. What makes you say that? Or why do you think that matters? Or how did you come to that conclusion? These aren't attacks, they're mirrors. And most people are unprepared to see their reflection clearly. If someone is lying, manipulating, or hiding something, these calm, innocent questions cause them to stumble. They reveal inconsistencies. They ramble. They sweat. They start tripping over their own narrative. And while they unravel, you remain still watching, observing, absorbing. But here's the catch. None of this works if your own face is giving everything away. That's why you must practice the Stoic poker face. If your eyebrows jump every time you hear something surprising, If your tone shifts the moment someone offends you, if your posture betrays your ego when the topic cuts too close, you've already lost your edge. So train your neutrality. In every conversation, keep a relaxed jaw. Keep your voice even. Let silence be your weapon. Respond slowly, intentionally, like someone who has nothing to prove. This isn't faking, it's self-mastery. Now let's talk about one of the most underrated tools of psychological dominance. The strategic use of I don't know. Imagine this. Instead of showing off what you know, you lean back and say, I don't know. What do you think? Instantly, the guard drops. People assume you're not a threat. So they keep talking. They keep revealing. They keep exposing. And all the while, you remain in control. Your advantage is invisible, and that's exactly where you want it to stay. The biggest mistake most people make when they finally feel confident is revealing it too early. The temptation is always there to flex your knowledge, to correct someone, to win a small argument. But every time you do, you reveal your level. Instead, you want people wondering, what is he really thinking? Why isn't she reacting? Does he see something I don't? That uncertainty breeds caution, and that caution turns into respect. This is how you dominate without ever raising your voice. Final thought. In a world addicted to noise, where everyone is desperate to be heard, choose the opposite. Be the one who listens. Let others fall in love with the sound of their own voice, while you fall in love with the information it gives you. When the world gets noisy, you won't be guessing where to strike, you'll already know. You'll know exactly when to move and how much force to apply. Because here's the truth. You can't overpower someone who already anticipates every move you'll make. But you can always outmaneuver the one who is too eager, too careless, too desperate to reveal their hand. That is why the quiet so often win. That is why the calm so often conquer. And that is why the wise, without ever shouting, end up dominating. True. Power never announces itself. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't beg for validation. It simply exists steady, grounded, silent, and undeniable. Think about the greatest leaders throughout history. They didn't lead by barking orders or demanding loyalty. They led by presence. They didn't have to say, "Follow me." People simply did. That is your next great advantage, to shape outcomes without forcing them, to influence the direction of minds without ever needing credit, to guide without showing your hand. Because here's the distinction: control and influence are not the same. Insecure people crave control. They micromanage every detail. They dominate with noise. They try to own others outright. But what's the result of control? Resistance, rebellion, fragility. When you rule with control, you create opponents. The powerful, on the other hand, operate with influence. They don't demand, they inspire. They don't shout, they suggest. They don't push people into action, they plant ideas so subtly that others feel it was their own decision all along. That's the essence of psychological leadership. And it's always more effective than brute force. Be the invisible hand that shapes the room. Imagine walking into a meeting without saying a word, yet people instinctively adjust themselves. They sit straighter. They measure their words more carefully, not because you've commanded them to, but because your presence has already spoken. This is quiet dominance at work. You don't chase attention. You command respect. How? Through posture that radiates composure. Through eye contact that's steady but never aggressive. Through words that are chosen slowly, intentionally, like surgical strikes. This isn't an act, it's a mindset. It's the embodiment of someone who doesn't react to every trivial disturbance because they have nothing to prove. And when you carry that certainty, people follow your lead without you ever asking. Now, here's one of the most advanced strategies in human influence. Plant ideas, but let others believe they were the ones who discovered them. Does it matter? Who gets the credit if the outcome moves in your favor? You don't say, "Do it my way." Instead, you ask, "Have you considered looking at it from this angle?" You don't declare, "My idea is better." You gently suggest, "What if we tried a different approach? What might happen then?" You let their ego breathe. You let them take ownership of the conclusion. And while they feel empowered, you've already guided the direction toward where you wanted it to go. That's how empires are built without ever raising a voice. Because here's the secret. Smart people argue about facts, but the wise know how to control the frame. Let me explain. If you try to win an argument by proving you're right, you've already walked into their arena. But if you shift the context, you control the premise, not the details. That changes everything. Imagine this. Someone criticizes your idea. Instead of defending it, you respond calmly. That's an interesting perspective. But I'm more focused on long-term impact than immediate results. Instantly, the frame has shifted. The conversation is now happening on your terms, not theirs. They came for a fight, but you redirected it with elegance. That is leadership without force. Detach yourself from the need to win, because here's where Stoicism enters in full. You don't need to win, you simply prefer to. And that difference gives you freedom. When you stay detached, you stay in control psychologically and strategically. You're not desperate to convince anyone. You're not afraid to walk away from the table. You're not shaken if your idea is dismissed at first, because deep down, you know it will resurface when the timing is right. That kind of mental freedom is rare, and it's powerful. It gives you the flexibility to navigate any environment, whether it's social, political, or emotional, with clarity and composure. You flow, not force. You guide, not grab. And while others exhaust themselves in the frantic rush to win short-term arguments, you conserve your energy. You're playing a different game altogether, the long game. And in the end, that's the one that really matters. Think of real-world power. The perfect example, Marcus Aurelius. He didn't need to bark orders or manipulate his people with threats. His authority came not from volume, but from reason. He led with dignity, with calm, with presence. When his generals failed, he didn't humiliate them. Instead, he asked questions. He listened. He adapted. Why? Because he understood one thing deeply: a true leader never needs to flex. Results speak louder than ego ever could. Now imagine applying that same principle today. Suppose someone opposes you. The insecure reaction would be to argue, to defend, to lash back. But the wise reaction, you pause. You let them speak. You thank them for their honesty. And then only then you shift the direction gently, because once emotion cools, reason quietly takes the throne, and once reason leads, the outcome is already yours. Here's the final truth. The ones who are obsessed with proving they're right have already lost. Why? Because they're playing for pride, not principle. But those who guide with calm presence, those who lead with clarity instead of noise, they end up owning both the respect and the result. Remember this. The most dangerous piece on the chessboard isn't the one that moves the fastest. It's the one no one sees coming. Be that piece. Lead silently. Influence strategically. Outsmart anyone without ever needing to reveal your full hand. History tells the same story again and again. Empires that rise on speed eventually collapse. Those built on ego crumble under their own weight, but legends the ones we still remember last. Why? Because they were forged in patience. They were built with clarity. They were strengthened in storms. That's the Stoic way. That's how the wise outlast the world. They play the long game. Now look around you. Most people are addicted to the now. They're in a rush to get rich, a rush to be noticed, a rush to win today. But what happens when you only chase speed? You burn out. You get distracted by noise. You trade long-term greatness for short-term dopamine. It's like playing chess by only thinking one move ahead you might capture a pawn. But you'll lose the entire board. This is where the Stoic advantage becomes clear. Think in decades, not days. The Stoics taught one of the most strategic truths ever spoken. Don't aim to seem wise, aim to become wise. You don't need to impress anyone right now. You need to become undeniable later. That means you skip the cheap applause. You endure the disciplines that feel boring. You build quietly while others broadcast their every move. Because the truth is this: the rewards of the long game are exponential. When others are collapsing from their sprint, you're still moving. Calm, steady, unstoppable. Here's a concrete example: the quick win trap. Let's say you're in a debate. Someone throws a petty jab at you. The easy move is to fire back with a clever insult. And yes, maybe the crowd laughs. Maybe you win that moment. But what have you really won? The moment your pride swells. You've already lost control. The fight is no longer about principle, it's about ego. The long game move. You don't take the bait. You pause, you smile, you say nothing. And in that silence, you've said everything. That restraint echoes louder than any comeback could. You didn't just win the moment, you won the frame. You established yourself as the higher presence. You don't bite back because you're not threatened. And that kind of victory is unforgettable. Long after the noise has faded, what lingers is not the insult, not the argument, but your composure. That's the power of restraint. That's the compound effect of strategic silence. Think of every choice you make as a drop of water, alone. A drop seems insignificant, but over time, those drops form rivers, even oceans. That's how true power is built quietly, steadily, relentlessly. And it terrifies people who live for the quick fix. While they chase applause, you're building leverage. While they're obsessed with followers, you're cultivating influence. While they burn energy on revenge, you're creating peace. And, in the end, Who really lasts longer, the one who exhausts themselves for short-term validation, or the one who waits without withering? Here's the truth. When you master patience, you master power. Most people act on impulse. They blurt out the first words that come to mind. They respond to every provocation. They jump at the first opportunity, even if it leads nowhere. But you're different. You wait. You listen longer than they expect. You observe longer than they can handle. You prepare longer than anyone thinks is reasonable. And when you finally act, it's not random. It's decisive. It's final. It's dominant. Because you weren't reacting. You were calculating. Marcus Aurelius himself played this long game. The most powerful man in Rome wrote in his private journal, "A cucumber is bitter. Then throw it away. There are brambles in the path. Then go around. That is enough. Don't demand the world conform to your expectations." What does this mean? It means don't let temporary discomfort derail you. Don't let minor frustrations steal your clarity. The Stoic leader understands life is long, ego is impatient. And when forced to choose, you choose life. You choose legacy over likes. Winning in silence while others burn out loud, that's the Stoic edge. People will mock your discipline. They'll laugh at your calm. They'll say you're boring, too serious, too reserved. But while they're distracted, you're collecting compound interest on your knowledge, on your strength, on your control. And when the time finally comes to strike, you don't need theatrics. You don't need noise. You simply act. And by the time they notice, it's already too late for them to catch up. That's the cruel poetry of the long game. The same people who mocked your patience will one day seek your guidance. The same ones who laughed will eventually follow. Here's the final lesson. Short-term thinkers want to win the room. Long-term thinkers, they build the entire building. Don't trade depth for speed. Don't trade endurance for ego. Don't trade clarity for applause. Because the one who plays the long game wins without rushing, influences without pushing, and dominates without trying. Let others chase the moment. You're chasing mastery. Real power doesn't come from aggression. It comes from composure, from being the calmest one in the room, while everyone else is busy reacting. And here's the brutal truth. The person who controls their emotions controls the environment. In business, in love, in conflict, in life, the most powerful player is never the loudest. It's the one who doesn't flinch. The one whose calm presence unsettles everyone else. Emotions, they can be your greatest ally or your greatest weakness. You are not your emotions, but if you don't master them, they will own you. When someone offends you, the instinct is to retaliate. When fear rises, the mind screams to escape. When you're hurt, the ego demands validation. And that right. There is the trap. The moment you react without thinking, you've already handed them control of your mind. Because the moment you let them trigger you, you've handed them the remote control to your inner peace. And that's exactly how most people lose. Not from a lack of intelligence, not because they're weak, but because they lack one crucial skill: emotional discipline. The narcissist's playground, your emotional triggers. Let's break it down. Manipulators, narcissists, toxic people. They thrive in one place inside your reactions. They study your buttons. They test your insecurities. They drip half-truths, stir outrage, and then sit back and watch. Why? Because every emotional reaction you give is leverage. The more predictable your emotions, the easier it is for them to steer your decisions. They don't need to outthink you. They just need you to self-destruct. But here's the paradox. The moment you become unshakable, the game is over for them. The Stoic response: observe. Don't absorb. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That's Stoic clarity. You don't have to absorb every insult. You don't have to internalize every rude tone. You don't have to engage every storm that comes your way. Instead, you observe it, you name it, you let it pass. You train your mind to respond, never to react. Because when you react, you're controlled. But when you respond, you are in command. Example: the power of a paused mind. Picture this. You're in a heated meeting. Someone publicly challenges your idea. You feel the heat rising in your chest. Your pulse quicken. Now, here's the dividing line. The average person snaps. They raise their voice. They fight for pride. But the strategist, they pause. They take a breath. They speak in a measured, calm tone. Not because they're suppressing anger, but because they're signaling control. And in that instant, the atmosphere changes. People don't remember the jab. They remember your composure. And that, right there, becomes your edge. Emotional intelligence is strategic dominance. In any high-performance environment, military, elite, sports, high-stakes negotiations, the lesson is always the same. He who stays calm wins. Why? Because emotions blur vision. Fear shrinks opportunity. Pride blinds reason. But when you are emotionally centered, you see what others miss. You sense weakness before it reveals itself. You anticipate conflict before it erupts. And most importantly, you become impossible to manipulate. Story time. The unbothered leader. There's a tale of a general whose troops were suddenly ambushed. Panic spread. Soldiers screamed. Officers rushed in, shouting, demanding orders. And where was the general? Sitting calmly, boiling tea. His officers yelled, "We're under attack." He quietly replied, "I make better decisions with a clear mind and warm hands." Minutes later, when the panic had burned out, he led his troops into a flawless counterattack. Victory wasn't born from aggression. It was born from stillness, from waiting until the storm passed inside, before confronting the storm outside. That's not detachment, that's domination through emotional regulation. The manipulator's nightmare. You stay calm. Let's be blunt. Some people don't want solutions, they want reactions. They insult you not to hurt you, but because your anger feeds their ego. They poke you. And when you lash back, they smirk. Why? Because they've made you dance to their tune. But when you don't react, when you look them straight in the eye, breathe, and stay calm, something shifts. They feel powerless. Your silence screams louder than any comeback. You don't control me. Not anymore. And that's how you reclaim your space, your peace, and your authority. Practical mastery. How to control emotions in real time. 1. Label it. Say it out loud. This is anger. This is ego. This is fear. The moment you name an emotion, you create distance between you and it. It's no longer who you are. It's simply what you're feeling point to. Delay your response. Insert time. Before you act, 10 seconds, 10 breaths, even 10 minutes if you need. That tiny delay can transform chaos into clarity. Point 3. Control your breath. Your nervous system follows your breath. Slow breath equals slow mind. Quick breath equals panic. Command your breathing, and you command yourself. 4. Shift perspective. Ask, will this matter in 5 days, in 5 months, in 5 years? Most of the storms raging inside you today will barely be a memory tomorrow. 5. Speak low and slow. Never raise your voice. The sharpest minds don't shout. The most dangerous players whisper. Final thought. Emotional control is not weakness. It's superiority. Don't mistake stillness for softness. The Stoic who doesn't scream back isn't afraid, they're simply too powerful to be provoked. When others are enslaved by their emotions, you become a fortress, not cold but composed, not numb but wise, not reactive but responsive, because in every arena, from the boardroom to the battlefield, the winner isn't the one who feels the most. It's the one who can turn feeling into fuel instead of a leash. Let others rage. Let them spiral. Let them destroy themselves, chasing dominance through noise. You'll win in silence. Because the calmest one in the room always ends up in control. You don't need to announce your plans. You don't need to explain your moves. You don't even need applause for progress nobody sees. Why? Because the most dangerous power is the one they never see coming. In a world obsessed with showing off, silence becomes your strategy. Invisibility becomes your weapon. Think about it. Visibility is a double-edged sword. When you broadcast every step, you invite envy, criticism, sabotage. When you reveal your goals too soon, you awaken resistance before you're strong enough to crush it. The Stoics understood this well. Work in silence. Let success make the noise. The greatest transformations don't happen under stage lights. They happen in the shadows, in solitude, away from shallow praise, away from the endless need for validation. When you disappear from the crowd, you become untouchable. The element of surprise, your most underrated power. Every game of power, from chess to politics, from business to love, rests on one truth. People cannot defend what they cannot see. If you're quiet about your growth, your ambitions, your next move, you deny your opposition the chance to stop you. By the time they realize what you've become, it's already too late. That's the difference between amateurs and operators. Amateurs perform. Professionals prepare silently. The gray zone, where real power grows. True growth isn't glamorous. It isn't loud. It doesn't come with likes, followers, or validation. It comes from shutting off the noise, turning inward, and building in the dark day after day, brick by brick. This is the gray zone, a place of solitude, a place of sacrifice, a place where nobody claps, nobody sees, and nobody understands. But that's where your edge is forged. While others fight for attention in the spotlight, you're building weapons in the basement. And when you finally emerge, the game is already over. Example: The quiet rise of a lion. Imagine this. You're in a company, while everyone else is busy, showing off, talking loudly, and chasing recognition. You stay silent. You observe. You study how the system works. You map out its strengths and its flaws. You don't beg for approval. You don't expose your ambition. And then, when the right moment arrives, you strike with precision, not impulsively, not emotionally, but with strategy. And at that moment, the only thing they can say is, "Where did this come from?" That's the point. They were watching the noise, while the real threat was growing quietly in the shadows. Your silence will confuse the weak. Weak people crave constant validation. They panic when no one notices them. They fear invisibility. Before you, silence is not weakness, it's discipline. It proves you're not here to impress. You're here to execute. Every day you stay quiet. About your moves, your blade sharpens. Every time you resist the urge to overshare, your focus deepens, until eventually you become a ghost in the game, unseen, unpredictable, unstoppable. Modern Stoicism is strategic invisibility. The Stoic doesn't parade his strength. He doesn't need to be understood, liked, or acknowledged, because the more you speak, the more you reveal, the more you show, the more they can aim at. Stoicism today isn't just about calm, it's about camouflage. It's about mastering yourself in the dark, becoming so dangerous that you never need to prove it. Tactic. Leave no clues. Keep your goals private. Execute first, reveal later. Withdraw emotionally. Don't react. Don't defend. Don't explain. Keep them guessing. Build in isolation. Create without applause. Play dumb when necessary. Let them underestimate you. Detach from validation. The less you need to be seen, the more untouchable you become. This is psychological warfare, the art of unreadability. If they can't predict your next move, they can't prepare. If they can't read your emotions, they can't manipulate. If they don't know what drives you, they'll never be able to stop you. The Stoic warrior isn't unreadable because he hides, he's unreadable because he no longer needs to be seen. And in that way, his silence is not passive, it's surgical. Never. Outshine the master. Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power warned this. Brilliance is not always rewarded. Often, when you shine too brightly, you don't earn admiration, you awaken insecurity. Your boss, your partner, even your closest friend. If your light casts a shadow over theirs, they won't clap for you. They'll quietly resent you. They won't say, "Well done." They'll say, "Who do you think you are?" The Stoic response, outsmart, not outshine. The Stoic doesn't crave the spotlight. He doesn't feed on applause, ego, or validation. Instead, he studies people. He reads the emotional climate of the room. He adapts. He learns to play small while preparing big, to act humble while calculating every move. This isn't weakness. This isn't deception. It's psychological aikido, letting others feel superior while you sharpen the blade in silence. Example: the strategist in the shadows. Imagine working on a team where one person constantly steals credit. They dominate meetings, interrupt others, and mistake silence for weakness. Most people either challenge them openly or shrink into frustration. But not you. You let them win small battles. You compliment them. You allow them to believe they're in control. You offer ideas quietly, letting them parade them as their own. And then one day, when their ego finally trips them up, guess who's already trusted, respected, and perfectly positioned to rise you. Not because you demanded recognition, but because you earned quiet leverage while they were too busy performing. The rule of the quiet assassin. 3 phases. 1. Observe the power dynamics. Study who's insecure, who's dominant, who needs to feel superior. 2. Strategically. Dim your light. Don't reveal all your skills at once. Don't correct every mistake. Don't rush to speak first. 3. Build behind the curtain. Cultivate allies. Gather knowledge. Sharpen your weapons where no one can see. Then, when the stage is finally empty, you're already prepared. Why most people fail this rule? They want recognition too soon. They can't tolerate being underestimated. They react to every insult. They always need to be right. But power is like heat. The more you reveal, the more they can measure you, target you, attack you. Stoic dominance is different. The Stoic plays the long game. He doesn't mind being ignored, he prefers it. It keeps him hidden until it's too late for anyone to stop him. Let others shine too brightly. Let their fire burn out of control. While they chase applause, you chase understanding. While they perform, you position yourself. And when they finally collapse under ego, exhaustion, or exposure, you will be the one left standing. Calm, ready, silent. Self-mastery over ego. The greatest danger to this law is not others, it's your own pride. When someone underestimates you, your ego wants to fight back. When someone steals your idea, your ego wants to expose them. When someone talks louder, your ego wants to silence them. But the Stoic doesn't need to win the moment he's playing for the war. Every time you resist the urge to prove yourself, you invest in quiet invincibility. Psychological mastery. Don't be a threat. Be the solution. When people feel threatened, they block you. But when they feel you're not competing with them, they lower their guard, and that's when you quietly advance. Be useful, and they'll promote you. That's the key. Don't be the competition, be the complement. Make your superiors feel safe. Make others feel important. Not because you lack value, but because you understand value. This is how you slip through defenses. This is how you outsmart everyone without ever needing to outshine them. Final reminder, you don't win by being seen. You win by being remembered. Applause fades, but influence endures. Don't aim to be the loudest voice in the room. Aim to be the most strategic presence. Don't force people to see your worth. Position yourself so they can't ignore it when it's already too late to compete. So let them underestimate you. Let them take the stage, the credit, the spotlight. Because when the dust settles and the real players remain, you won't just be visible. You'll be unforgettable. You were never meant to live small. Not in your career. Not in your relationships. Not in your life. You were meant to dominate quietly. To control outcomes without noise. To win without ever needing to shout that you've won. The 7 Stoic rules you've just learned aren't just tactics. They're a philosophy, a code for those who are done explaining, a shield for those who refuse to be manipulated, a weapon for those tired of losing to louder, weaker people. Remember, The loudest one in the room is usually the weakest. The one who craves power the most never truly has it. And the one who plays the long game always wins. So don't beg for respect. Command it, not by noise, but by silence. Not by ego, but by execution. Outsmart them, outlast them, outplay them. And when they finally ask, "How did you do it?" just smile. Because the strongest never explain, they execute. If this message struck a chord with you, don't just walk away. Subscribe to Stoic Capsule and turn on the bell. Because here we don't just talk about mindset, we forge it. Share this video with someone who needs to stop reacting and start ruling. And in the comments, tell me, which of the 7 Stoic rules will you master first? This isn't motivation. This is mental warfare. And now you are armed.